The bridge of the UES Liberty hummed quietly as it drifted through space near the Vega system. Commander Jake Harrison sat in his captain's chair, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. It was supposed to be a routine patrol. Nothing more than checking shipping lanes and making sure pirates weren't causing trouble. Lisa Martinez, the communications officer, suddenly straightened at her station. Her fingers moved quickly across her console as strange signals appeared on her screen. "Commander, I'm picking up an encrypted transmission. It's not from any of our ships." Jake turned toward her. "Can you decode it?" Lisa worked for several minutes, her face growing more concerned with each passing moment. "Sir, you need to see this. I've broken through their encryption, but the content..." She paused, her voice shaking slightly. "It's a video transmission." "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The peaceful view of stars disappeared, replaced by something that made Jake's blood run cold. The image showed what looked like an auction house, but not for goods or livestock. On a raised platform stood two young girls, both human, both wearing heavy metal chains around their wrists and ankles. The girls couldn't have been older than 16. One had blonde hair that fell past her shoulders, while the other had shorter, brown hair. Both looked terrified, their eyes wide as alien creatures in the audience made bids. The aliens spoke in different languages, but the translation software made their words clear. "These specimens are in excellent condition," announced the auctioneer, a tall being with gray skin and forearms. "Young humans from the outer colonies. Very rare. Very valuable." Jake felt his hands clench into fists as he watched. The blonde girl was crying, trying to comfort the younger one beside her. Around them, various alien species examined them like they were objects for sale. "The bid is now at 4,000 credits for the pair," the auctioneer continued. "Do I hear 5,000? Lisa had gone pale at her station. "Commander, I'm running facial recognition now." Her fingers flew over her keyboard. "The database is searching through missing persons reports from the last 6 months." On screen, the bidding continued. A creature that looked like a giant insect raised one of its clawed appendages. 5,000, it clicked. 6,000, called out another alien, this one covered in what looked like scales. Jake turned to his intelligence officer, Ryan Brooks, who was already pulling up files on his tablet. "Brooks, I want everything we have on human trafficking in this sector. Now." "Yes, sir," Ryan replied, his usual calm voice tight with anger. "Commander, the facial recognition just came back positive." The main screen split, showing the auction on one side and 2 identification photos on the other. The names appeared below the pictures: Emma Collins, age 16, and Sophie Turner, age 15. "They're from the colony ship New Hope," Ryan continued, reading from his files. "The ship was attacked by raiders 3 months ago during an evacuation mission. Most of the colonists made it to safety, but several children went missing. These 2 were among them." Jake stood up from his chair, his jaw tight. "How did this transmission reach us?" Lisa checked her instruments. "It's being broadcast on several frequencies, sir. I think it's advertising for potential buyers across multiple systems. They're selling them like livestock," whispered another bridge officer. Jake walked closer to the screen, watching as the 2 girls huddled together. The blonde one, Emma, was whispering something to Sophie, probably trying to keep her calm. Even in their terror, they were looking out for each other. 7,000 credits, another alien bid. "The auction is taking place on Kepler 442b, Ryan reported. "It's controlled by the Tarkonian Empire. They've been expanding their slave trade operations for the past few years." "Slave trade," Jake repeated, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. "In the 25th century, and we still have to deal with slave traders." On screen, the auctioneer was getting excited as the bids climbed higher. 8,000. Do I hear 9? These are prime specimens, excellent for collectors who appreciate exotic species." Sophie stumbled slightly, and Emma immediately caught her, holding her up. The crowd of alien buyers laughed at the display, as if it was entertaining. "That's enough," Jake said quietly. "Martinez, record everything. I want every frame of this transmission saved and analyzed." "Already on it, sir," Lisa replied. Brooks, get me everything we have on the Tarkonian Empire. Ship positions, military, strength, political structure. Everything. Jake turned to his navigation officer. Carter, set course for Earth. Maximum speed. Sir? Carter looked confused. We're going home, Jake said, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. This transmission needs to reach the Defense Council immediately. As the Liberty changed course and jumped to hyperspace, the transmission continued. Jake watched as the bidding finally ended at 12,000 credits. The buyer was a fat alien creature with tentacles instead of arms. It spoke in a language that sounded like grinding metal. Excellent choice, Mr. Vorthak, the auctioneer said. These specimens will be delivered to your private collection within the week. Emma and Sophie were led away in their chains, disappearing through a door behind the auction platform. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Sir, Ryan said quietly, those girls, they're somebody's daughters. Jake nodded, staring at the now empty main screen. Yes, they are. And more than that, they're Earth's daughters. He turned to address his crew. What we just saw isn't just a crime against those two girls. It's a crime against all of humanity. For too long, we've been the newcomers in this galaxy, trying to be polite, trying to fit in with alien civilizations. Jake's voice grew stronger. But there are some lines that cannot be crossed. There are some things that demand a response, regardless of the diplomatic consequences. The crew listened intently as their commander continued. We're not just going to report this to the Defense Council. We're going to make sure they understand exactly what happened here. Those girls didn't just disappear into space. They were stolen, chained, and sold like animals. Jake looked at each member of his bridge, crew, and if there's one thing humanity has never tolerated, it's someone threatening our children. The Liberty raced through hyperspace toward Earth, carrying news that would change everything. Behind them, two girls sat in a dark cell on a distant world, not knowing that their ordeal had just lit a fire that would burn across the galaxy. The emergency session of Earth's Unified Defense Council began at 3 a.m, but every member was present. Admiral Patricia Stone stood at the head of the massive conference table, her face grim as she watched the recording that Commander Harrison had brought back from the Vega system. The room fell completely silent as the auction footage played on the large screens around the chamber. Seasoned military officers and government officials, people who had seen the worst of warfare and politics, sat transfixed by the horror unfolding before them. When the transmission ended, nobody spoke for a long moment. Admiral Stone was the first to break the silence. Those are our children, she said simply. Emma Collins and Sophie Turner, 16 and 15 years old. They've been missing for 3 months, and now we know why. President Helen Carter, who had been awakened and flown in for this emergency meeting, leaned forward in her chair. Her usually composed demeanor was gone, replaced by cold anger. How many others? And she asked. How many other human children are out there in alien slave markets? Dr. Amy Foster, Earth's leading expert on alien civilizations, consulted her tablet. Based on missing persons reports from the outer colonies over the past 2 years, we estimate at least 40 human children have been taken by slave traders. The number hit the room like a physical blow. 40 children, stolen from their families and sold to alien collectors across the galaxy. The Tarkonian Empire has been expanding their operations, Dr. Foster continued. They target isolated colonies and refugee ships. Humans are considered exotic because we're relatively new to galactic civilization. Marine Colonel Danny Walsh slammed his fist on the table. Exotic? They're calling our kids exotic animals? Worse than that, Admiral Stone replied. They're calling them collectibles, rare items for wealthy aliens to own and display. President Carter stood up slowly. Around her, the most powerful people on Earth waited for her words. She had been elected to lead humanity into a new age of space exploration and peaceful contact with alien civilizations. Now she faced a decision that would define her presidency and possibly humanity's future in the galaxy. Gentlemen and ladies, she began, her voice steady but cold. We have spent decades building diplomatic relationships with alien governments. We've been careful, respectful, patient. We've followed their laws, honored their customs, and tried to prove that humanity deserves a place among the civilized worlds. She paused, looking around the room at faces that reflected her own anger and determination. But there are some things more important than diplomacy. When alien creatures put our children in chains and sell them like property, diplomacy ends. The room erupted in agreement. Officers who had spent their careers maintaining peace were now calling for action. Admiral Stone raised her hand for quiet. "Ma'am, what are your orders?" she asked. President Carter turned to the large display showing the star charts of known space. "We bring them home, all of them. Every single human child in alien hands comes home." Colonel Walsh leaned forward. "Ma'am, that could mean war with several alien governments." "Then so be it," President Carter replied without hesitation. "Let me be clear about humanity's position. We didn't ask to become part of galactic civilization so we could watch our children be sold as pets. If these alien empires think we're just another weak species they can exploit, they're about to learn otherwise." Admiral Stone began making notes on her tablet. "I'll need authorization to mobilize the fleet, all of it." "Done," the President said immediately. "Admiral, you have complete authority over military operations. Use whatever resources you need." Navy Captain Susan Reed, who commanded Earth's newest battleship, raised her hand. "Ma'am, intelligence suggests the Tarkonian Empire has significant military strength. Their fleet outnumbers ours 3-1. President Carter smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Captain, for the past 50 years humanity has been building ships and weapons while telling everyone they're for exploration and defense. Do you really think we've shown them our true capabilities?" Captain Reed's eyes widened as she understood. "No, ma'am, we haven't. The galaxy is about to see what happens when you threaten Earth's children," the President continued. "Admiral Stone, I want a rescue fleet ready to deploy within 72 hours. I want our best Marines, our most advanced ships, and enough firepower to level a planet if necessary." Dr. Foster spoke up from her seat. "Ma'am, the diplomatic consequences could be severe. Other alien governments might see this as human aggression." "Let them," President Carter replied. "Dr. Foster, I want you to prepare a message for broadcast on all galactic communication channels. Make sure every alien government, every trade organization, every military force in known space receives it." "What should the message say?" "Doctor?" Foster asked. President Carter walked to the window overlooking Earth's capital city. In the distance, she could see families starting their day, children heading to school, parents going to work. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that their government was about to change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. "Tell them that humanity has one simple rule," she said. "Our children are off limits. Anyone who harms them, anyone who enslaves them, anyone who even threatens them, will face the full wrath of Earth." She turned back to the room. "Tell them that we tried to be peaceful neighbors. We tried to follow their rules and respect their customs, but they made one critical mistake." "What mistake?" Admiral Stone asked. "They assumed that because we're new to space, we're weak. They assumed that because we've been diplomatic, we don't have teeth." President Carter's voice grew harder. "They're about to learn that humans will cross any distance, fight any enemy, and burn any world to protect their own." Colonel Walsh was already on his communication device, calling his battalion commanders. "I want the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force ready for immediate deployment, full combat loadout." Captain Reed was making similar calls to her fleet commanders. "All ships to battle stations. This is not a drill." Across Earth, military bases came alive with activity. Soldiers who had been training for years finally received real orders. Ships that had been designed for war but disguised as exploration vessels began loading their true weapons. In private military contractor offices, men like Tony Ricci answered calls from government officials. "Whatever you need," he told them. "Our children are out there." Cyber warfare specialist Chris Murphy began his own preparations, targeting Tarkonian communication networks. "If we're going to hit them, we hit them blind and deaf," he muttered, as his fingers flew across multiple keyboards. President Carter looked around the room one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, when this is over, the galaxy will know two things about humanity. First, we protect our own, no matter the cost. Second, we're much stronger than we've let anyone believe. She headed toward the door, then stopped. Oh, and make sure our message is translated into every alien language. I want there to be no confusion about humanity's position on this matter. As the president left the room, Admiral Stone began issuing orders that would mobilize the largest human fleet ever assembled. Within hours, ships across Earth's solar system were moving toward predetermined gathering points. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake. It had threatened Earth's children, and now it was about to learn why that was the worst decision it could have made. The largest fleet in human history assembled in the darkness beyond Pluto's orbit. 57 warships, ranging from massive battlecruisers to fast attack vessels, waited in perfect formation. At their head was the UES Retribution, a ship so powerful that most alien governments didn't even know it existed. Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship, watching as the final ships took their positions. Admiral Stone had promoted him and given him command of the rescue operation. "You found them," she had said. "Now you bring them home." The bridge around him buzzed with quiet activity. His crew knew they were making history, but their focus remained on the mission. 2 girls needed rescue, and possibly dozens more humans scattered across Tarkonian space. Intelligence operative Kelly Morgan had been deployed to Zerion Prime 3 weeks ago, posing as a rare metals trader. Her reports painted a clear picture of where Emma and Sophie were being held, but the news wasn't good. "The compound is heavily fortified," Kelly's voice came through the secure communication channel. 20-foot walls, energy shields, and at least 200 guards. The Tarkonians aren't taking any chances with their valuable merchandise. Jake studied the holographic display showing the layout of the compound. It looked more like a military fortress than a holding facility. "What about the girls? Have you seen them?" "Negative on visual confirmation," Kelly replied. "But I've intercepted internal communications. They're being held in the central building, probably in the underground levels. The buyer, a creature called Vorthak, wants them kept in perfect condition until the transfer." Lieutenant Commander Paul Stevens, Jake's tactical officer, highlighted weak points in the compound's defenses. "Sir, the energy shields have a 15-second refresh cycle. If we time our approach correctly, we can punch through." "What about civilian casualties?" Jake asked. Paul checked his readings. "The compound is isolated, about 50 miles from the nearest Tarkonian city. Minimal risk to non-combatants." Combat engineer Maria Santos looked up from her planning station. "Commander, I've designed specialized breaching charges for their building materials. We can create entry points wherever we need them." Jake nodded. The plan was coming together, but he knew they had bigger problems than just rescuing Emma and Sophie. Intelligence suggested there were other human children being held at facilities across Tarkonian space. Dr. Amy Foster's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Commander Harrison, I've finished my analysis of Tarkonian military capabilities. You need to see this." Jake made his way to the intelligence briefing room, where Dr. Foster had set up detailed displays of enemy ship designs and weapon systems. "The good news is that their technology is about 20 years behind ours," she began. "Their ships are slower, their weapons are less accurate, and their shields are weaker." "And the bad news?" Jake asked. "They have 3 times as many ships as we do. The Tarkonian Imperial fleet has over 150 vessels stationed throughout their territory." Jake studied the tactical displays. "What about their ground forces?" "Approximately 50,000 troops across 12 worlds," Dr. Foster continued. "But here's the interesting part. Their military is designed for controlling civilian populations, not fighting actual wars. They've been bullying weaker species for so long that they've forgotten what real combat looks like." Medic Stephen Clark entered the briefing room carrying medical supplies specially prepared for traumatized rescue victims. "Sir, I've set up the medical bay to handle psychological trauma as well as physical injuries. Those girls have been through hell." Jake appreciated his crew's thorough preparation, but he knew the rescue was only the beginning. President Carter's orders had been clear. Find every human child in Tarkonian hands and bring them home. Dr. Foster, what do we know about other holding facilities? She brought up a galactic map with red markers scattered across Tarkonian space. We've identified at least 6 major compounds where humans are being held. Some are auction houses, others are private collections. Jake counted the markers. That's a lot of ground to cover. Yes, sir. And intelligence suggests the Tarkonians are moving human captives to more secure locations since news of our fleet mobilization leaked. Lieutenant Alex Thompson, leader of the fighter squadron, joined the briefing. Sir, my pilots are ready for anything. We've been training for deep space combat missions, but this feels personal. Jake understood the feeling. Every member of his crew had volunteered for this mission, and many had refused transfer to safer assignments. The image of Emma and Sophie in chains had affected everyone who saw it. Major Frank Adams, commanding the Marine Assault Team, spread out building plans on the briefing table. Commander, we've wargamed this operation dozens of times. My Marines can have those girls out of that compound in under 10 minutes. What about resistance? Jake asked. We're prepared for heavy fighting, Major Adams replied. But honestly, sir, I don't think the Tarkonians know what they're dealing with. They've been picking on unarmed colonists and refugees. They've never faced human military forces. Sergeant Kate Williams, who would lead the actual rescue team, looked up from checking her equipment. Sir, my squad has specialized training in hostage rescue. We'll get those girls out safely. Jake felt confident in his team, but he also felt the weight of command. This wasn't just about Emma and Sophie anymore. This was about sending a message to every alien government in the galaxy. All right, people, listen up, he said. In 6 hours, we jump to the Zerian system. Our primary objective is the rescue of Emma Collins and Sophie Turner. But our larger mission is to shut down every Tarkonian slave operation we can find. He looked around the room at his officers. The president was clear about our rules of engagement. Any facility holding human captives is a legitimate target. Any ship transporting human slaves can be destroyed. Any Tarkonian official involved in the slave trade is considered an enemy combatant. Corporal Mike Johnson, part of the rescue team, raised his hand. Sir, what if they try to negotiate? What if they offer to release the prisoners in exchange for us backing down? Jake's expression hardened. The time for negotiation ended when they put our children in chains. We're not here to make deals or accept compromises. We're here to take back what's ours and make sure this never happens again. Communications Officer Lisa Martinez reported from the bridge. Commander, we're receiving final intelligence updates from our sources inside Tarkonian space. It looks like they're consolidating their human captives at 3 major facilities. That actually works in our favor, Jake replied. Instead of hitting a dozen small targets, we can focus our efforts. As the fleet prepared for the jump to hyperspace, Jake returned to his quarters for a few minutes of quiet reflection. On his desk was a photo of Emma and Sophie from their colony ship records. They looked happy, surrounded by their families during a celebration before the evacuation. He picked up the photo and made a silent promise. We're coming for you. Both of you. And anyone who hurt you is going to pay. The ship's intercom crackled to life. All hands prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination Zerian Prime, estimated arrival 6 hours. Jake returned to the bridge as the stars outside stretched into lines of light. The UES Retribution and her escort fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying humanity's answer to those who would enslave their children. Behind them, Earth continued its normal routine, but the galaxy was about to change forever. The hunt had begun. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zerion system like an arriving storm. 57 warships appeared simultaneously, their weapon systems already charging and their fighters launching from carrier bays. Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as Tarkonian patrol ships scrambled to respond to their arrival. The alien vessels looked tiny compared to the human fleet, like insects buzzing around giants. Communications. Open a channel on all frequencies, Jake ordered. Lisa Martinez nodded. Channel open, sir. Jake's voice echoed across space, reaching every ship, station, and communication device in the system. This is Commander Jake Harrison of the United Earth Defense Force. You have something that belongs to us. 2 human children were sold at auction in this system. You will return them immediately." The response came quickly. A harsh, mechanical voice speaking accented English replied, "Human vessels, you are trespassing in Tarkonian space. Withdraw, immediately or face destruction." Jake almost smiled. "Destruction? You're threatening us with destruction?" He turned to his tactical officer. "Stevens, show them what destruction looks like." Lieutenant Commander Paul Stevens targeted the largest Tarkonian patrol ship with the Retribution's main guns. The massive energy beams cut through the alien vessel like it was made of paper. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash, its debris scattering across space. "There," Jake said calmly. "Now that we understand each other, let's discuss the return of our children." The Tarkonian commander's voice had lost some of its arrogance. "Human fleet. Those specimens were legally purchased according to Imperial law." "Specimens?" Jake's voice turned cold. "You just called human children specimens." He opened a new communication channel to his fleet. "All ships, you heard that? They called our children specimens. Light them up." The human fleet opened fire with coordinated precision. Tarkonian patrol ships vanished under concentrated weapons fire. The orbital defense platforms that protected Zerion Prime crumbled as human missiles found their targets. Lieutenant Alex Thompson led his fighter squadron through the chaos, his pilots clearing the space around the planet with brutal efficiency. "Target-rich environment," he reported. "Tarkonian fighters are no match for our craft." On the planet's surface, Major Frank Adams and his Marines were already in their dropships, preparing for the ground assault. "All teams, remember the mission. Get in, secure the prisoners, get out. Anyone who tries to stop us is an enemy combatant." The dropships launched from the Retribution's bays, racing toward the planet's surface under cover of the orbital bombardment. Tarkonian ground defenses tried to intercept them, but human electronic warfare systems jammed their targeting computers. Sergeant Kate Williams checked her equipment one final time as her dropship approached the compound, where Emma and Sophie were held. "Squad, we've trained for this 100 times. Stick to the plan, watch each other's backs, and bring those girls home." The dropships landed in a coordinated assault around the compound. Marines poured out, their weapons already firing at Tarkonian guards who tried to resist. The aliens had never faced human military forces before, and their shock was obvious. "Breaching charges ready." Combat engineer Maria Santos called out as her team approached the compound's main wall. The explosion shook the ground, creating a massive hole in the fortified barrier. Major Adams led the charge through the breach, his Marines following in. Perfect formation. Inside the compound, chaos reigned. Tarkonian guards fired wildly, their shots mostly missing as human soldiers advanced with methodical precision. The aliens had numbers, but humans had training, equipment, and righteous fury. "Underground levels that way." Corporal Mike Johnson pointed toward a reinforced door marked with alien symbols. Intelligence operative Kelly Morgan had provided detailed maps of the facility's layout. Sergeant Williams and her squad fought there, way down stone steps into the compound's lower levels. The air grew colder and more stale as they descended. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls. "Contact front," one of her Marines called out as Tarkonian guards tried to block their advance. The firefight was brief, but intense, ending with the aliens retreating deeper into the facility. They found the holding cells behind a heavy metal door that Maria Santos blasted open with another breaching charge. The door fell inward with a crash, revealing a long corridor lined with small cells. "Emma, Sophie," Sergeant Williams called out. "This is the United Earth Defense Force. We're here to take you home." A weak voice answered from one of the cells. "Here, we're here." Williams and Corporal Johnson rushed to the cell, finding Emma Collins and Sophie Turner huddled together on a thin mattress. Both girls were thinner than in their photos, and their clothes were dirty, but they were alive. "You hurt?" Williams asked as Johnson worked on the electronic lock. "No," Emma replied, tears streaming down her face. "Are you really from Earth? Are you really here to rescue us?" "Yes," Williams said firmly. "We're taking you home." The lock clicked open, and both girls stumbled out of their cell into the Marines' protective formation. Sophie could barely stand, so Corporal Johnson lifted her carefully while another Marine helped Emma. "Move out," Williams ordered. "We have the packages. Extraction Point Alpha." As they fought their way back to the surface, the orbital bombardment continued above them. Jake Harrison wasn't just rescuing two girls. He was sending a message to every alien government in the galaxy. The Retribution's weapons targeted slave auction houses, administrative buildings, and anything connected to the Tarkonian slave trade. Each blast lit up the night sky like artificial stars. "Sir," Paul Stevens reported from the tactical station, "Tarkonian reinforcements are jumping into the system. Looks like their main fleet." Jake watched as dozens of alien warships appeared on his screens. They outnumbered the human fleet, but he wasn't concerned. "All ships, prepare for fleet engagement. Show them what Earth's children mean to us." The space battle that followed would be remembered across the galaxy for centuries. Tarkonian ships, built for intimidating weaker species, found themselves outmatched by human technology and determination. Human weapons cut through alien shields like they weren't there. Human ships moved faster and struck harder than anything the Tarkonians had encountered. Within an hour, half the alien fleet was destroyed or fleeing. On the planet's surface, Major Adams received confirmation that all human prisoners had been located and secured. Besides Emma and Sophie, they had found 6 other humans being held for various buyers. All prisoners secured and ready for extraction, Adams reported. Medic Stephen Clark was already working with the rescued humans, checking their physical condition and beginning psychological treatment. "They're scared and traumatized, but they'll be okay," he reported. "Nothing that time and proper care can't heal." As the dropships lifted off with their precious cargo, Jake authorized the final phase of the operation. "All ships, target the remaining slave facilities. I want every building connected to this trade reduced to ash." The bombardment continued for another hour. When it ended, the Tarkonian slave trade on Zerion Prime was completely destroyed. Buildings that had held countless victims lay in ruins. The auction houses where human children had been sold burned like funeral pyres. Emma Collins and Sophie Turner sat in the Retribution's medical bay, wrapped in warm blankets and drinking hot chocolate. They kept staring at the human faces around them, as if they couldn't quite believe the rescue was real. "Commander," Emma said when Jake came to check on them. "How did you find us?" Jake sat down beside them. "Your voices carried across space. When humans cry out for help, we hear them. No matter how far away, no matter how dangerous the rescue, we come for our own." Sophie, who hadn't spoken much since the rescue, finally found her voice. "What happens now?" Jake smiled, the first genuine smile he'd had in weeks. "Now you go home. You see your families again. You get to be normal teenagers instead of prisoners." He stood up and looked out the medical bay's viewing port at the burning remains of Zerion Prime. "And the galaxy learns that there are consequences for threatening Earth's children." The human fleet prepared to leave the Zerion system, their mission accomplished. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. Intelligence had identified other slave facilities, other human prisoners scattered across alien space. President Carter's orders had been clear: bring them all home, no matter the cost. The fire that started on Zerion Prime would spread across the galaxy until every human child was free. The hunt was far from over. The medical bay of the UES Retribution had become a place of healing and hope. Emma Collins and Sophie Turner sat with Dr. Stephen Clark and Counselor Janet Moore, slowly working through the trauma of their captivity. Both girls had gained weight, and color had returned to their faces during the week-long journey back to Earth. Commander Jake Harrison visited them daily, not as their rescuer, but as someone who wanted to make sure they knew they were safe. Today's visit was different. Today he had news. "Girls," he said, sitting down across from them. "We're almost home. Earth is just 2 hours away." Emma looked up from the book she'd been reading. "Will our families be there?" "Yes," Jake replied, with a smile. "Your parents are waiting at Luna Station. They've been there for 3 days, too excited to wait on Earth." Sophie, who had been quiet during most of the journey, suddenly spoke up. Commander, what about the other children? The ones who are still out there? Jake's expression grew serious. That's something I wanted to talk to you about. We found 6 other humans at the facility where you were held, but our intelligence suggests there are more, maybe dozens more. Are you going to save them too? Emma asked. Yes, Jake said without hesitation. Every single one. That's a promise. As the Retribution approached Earth's solar system, Jake made his way to the bridge. The ship's communication systems had been recording messages from across human space. News of the rescue had spread quickly, and the reaction was exactly what he had expected. Commander, Lisa Martinez reported, we're receiving transmission requests from every major news network on Earth. They want interviews about the rescue. Jake shook his head. Tell them the girls aren't ready for interviews yet. Maybe in a few weeks when they've had time to heal. Sir? Paul Stevens called from his tactical station. We're getting something interesting on the long-range sensors. Looks like ships from several alien governments are requesting permission to enter the solar system. What kind of ships? Jake asked. Diplomatic vessels mostly. Representatives from the hegemony, the Trade Consortium, even some from the Crystal Collective. Jake understood what this meant. The destruction of the Tarkonian fleet and the rescue operation had sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Alien governments were scrambling to understand humanity's true military capabilities. Let them come, he decided. But they wait in the outer system until Earth decides if they want to talk. As the Retribution docked at Luna Station, Jake could see the crowds gathered in the observation decks. Families of the rescued children pressed against the windows, tears streaming down their faces as they saw their loved ones return. Emma and Sophie's reunion with their parents was everything Jake had hoped it would be. Both girls were swept up, in embraces that seemed to last forever, while their families whispered words of love and relief. Admiral Patricia Stone met Jake at the docking bay. Commander, the President wants to see you immediately. There's been a development. They traveled to Earth aboard a high-speed shuttle, landing at the Capitol just as the sun was setting. President Helen Carter was waiting in the Situation Room, surrounded by military advisors and communication equipment. Commander Harrison, she said, standing as he entered. Congratulations on a successful mission. How are the girls? Recovering, ma'am. They're strong kids. They'll be fine with time and support. Good. The President gestured to a chair. Now, we need to discuss what happens next. The galaxy is in an uproar. We've received communications from 47 different alien governments in the past week. Dr. Amy Foster looked up from her translation equipment. Most of them want to discuss trade agreements and military alliances. A few are demanding explanations for our aggressive actions in Tarkonian space. President Carter walked to a large display showing the galactic political map. Several systems that had been marked as Tarkonian territory were now labeled as contested or abandoned. It seems our little rescue operation caused more damage than we realized, she said. The Tarkonian Empire is collapsing. 3 of their colony worlds have declared independence and their remaining fleet is scattered. Jake felt a grim satisfaction. Good. Maybe other slave traders will think twice before targeting humans. Oh, they already are, Dr. Foster said. We're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Slave markets that used to sell humans have quietly stopped accepting human merchandise. Word is spreading fast. Admiral Stone activated another display, showing intelligence reports from across known space. Jake, your message is being broadcast on every major communication network in the galaxy. Everyone has seen it. Jake remembered the transmission he had sent from the burning ruins of Zerion Prime. He had spoken from the heart, fueled by anger and determination. Now it seemed those words were changing everything. Ma'am, he said to the President, what are your orders regarding the other human prisoners? President Carter's expression hardened. We bring them all home, every single one. I've authorized the formation of Task Force Liberation. You'll command it. She turned to Admiral Stone. Admiral, I want our newest ships, our best crews, and enough firepower to level any facility that's holding our people. Yes, ma'am, Admiral Stone replied. How many ships are we talking about? All of them, President Carter said simply. Every warship in the human fleet, every Marine regiment, every fighter squadron. The galaxy thought they were dealing with a minor power that could be bullied and exploited. They were wrong. Dr. Foster pulled up intelligence reports on her tablet. Ma'am, we've identified locations where humans are being held across 12 different star systems. Some are controlled by governments, others by private collectors. I don't care who controls them, the president replied. If they have our children, we're coming for them. Jake studied the star charts showing potential rescue targets. Ma'am, this could mean war with multiple alien governments simultaneously. President Carter nodded. Commander, 50 years ago, when humanity first reached the stars, we made a decision. We would be peaceful, diplomatic, and respectful of alien civilizations. We would prove that we deserved a place in galactic society. She looked around the room at her advisors and commanders. But we also made another decision, one we kept secret. If anyone threatened our children, if anyone enslaved our people, we would show the galaxy why Earth remained unconquered throughout its history. Admiral Stone began pulling up classified files on her terminal. Commander, there are weapon systems and ship designs that no alien government knows about. We've been preparing for this possibility since first contact. Jake felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders again. This wasn't just about rescuing prisoners anymore. This was about establishing humanity's place in the galaxy permanently. What about the diplomatic consequences, he asked. Let me worry about diplomacy, President Carter replied. Your job is to bring our people home and make sure this never happens again. She walked to the window overlooking Earth's capital city, where millions of people were going about their normal lives. Commander, what you did at Xerion Prime was just the beginning. The message you sent is going to be reinforced by actions across the galaxy. Jake understood. We're not just rescuing prisoners, we're redefining humanity's relationship with the rest of the galaxy. Exactly, the president confirmed. For too long we've been the polite newcomers trying to fit in and prove ourselves worthy. That ends now. The galaxy will learn to respect us not because we ask for it, but because we demand it. Dr. Foster looked up from her communication equipment. Ma'am, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Hegemony Council. They want to negotiate the release of human prisoners in their territory. President Carter smiled coldly. Tell them that negotiation time is over. They had decades to stop the slave trade. Now they'll face the consequences of allowing it to continue. She turned back to Jake. Commander, Task Force Liberation launches in 1 week. Your mission is simple. Find every human being held against their will in alien space and bring them home. Use whatever force is necessary. Jake stood and saluted. Yes, ma'am. What about rules of engagement? Anyone who enslaves humans is an enemy combatant. Anyone who profits from human suffering is a legitimate target. Anyone who tries to stop you from completing your mission will face the full power of Earth's military. As Jake prepared to leave, President Carter called him back. Commander, Emma and Sophie asked to record a message for the galaxy. They want other prisoners to know that rescue is coming. She activated a recording device and Emma's young voice filled the room. To any human who might hear this, anywhere, in the galaxy, we want you to know that Earth hasn't forgotten you. Help is coming. No matter how far away you are, no matter how hopeless things seem, humanity is coming to bring you home. Sophie's voice joined in. They tried to break us, but we never gave up hope. You shouldn't give up either. Earth's children are never abandoned. The recording ended, leaving the room in silence. Jake felt his resolve strengthen even further. Those two brave girls had endured hell, and now they were offering hope to others in similar situations. That message goes out on every frequency, in every language, President Carter ordered. I want every human prisoner in the galaxy to hear it.